Blind. Here we go. What's up, Wellbeing Nation? We're back for another episode, hanging out with my two awesome friends, Steph. Well, Steph, is it Steph-Tarnofsky now or Steph-Hendel still?
Yeah, it's got a little dash in the middle, Hendel-Tarnofsky, but all of the above, all of it works.
and then we got Josh Tarnofsky in the house as well.
Yo, what's happening?
My two homies. Man, I met you guys. Did I meet both of you at a retreat? Is that how I met you two?
I think Josh, you met at a retreat.
I think you and I hit it off first, and then I ended up getting stepped. We traveled down across our road trip across the United States and stopped down with you. I think that's when you met.
That's the first time I met you. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. That's awesome. Yeah. So when we met, I was just blown away by these two. Just the fact that they're able to be almost like nomads and travel wherever and make do with whatever they had. And still stay healthy, still stay well. And beyond that, really just, learn along the way and really share insights and keep growing and keep growing and growing and growing. It was really cool to watch. I was like, how is this possible to just be nomads and just rock it out like that? And that was a very inspiring thing for me because for me, as most of you guys know, since you've been listening to this podcast for a while, most of you guys know, I've been more of the guy to set roots down and then from there, go off and do my thing. But these two have figured it out. Like they can be anywhere, any place, and still like provide value, contribute, and do some amazing things. Like Steph has 3 or 4 businesses that I've seen. There's Body Built by Love. There's just so many different things that you're doing. But I think the key thing that I've enjoyed with Steph's message is that it's really going into the mind and seeing what your mental blocks are from you really achieving the health, the body that you really want. So that's a key thing I've noticed in her business. And then Josh has supported Steph and also starting now, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, you started Yogathlete yet?
Yeah, Yogathlete is getting massive traction, taking some serious shape. It's always that infant stage and learning to walk, and we're right there just getting our feet set and going to start running soon.
Sweet. Yeah, I remember when I first talked to Josh about Yogathlete, and that was really about the ultimate mover, the person that can be aligned and structurally intact while they moved. And now it's going to become a pretty badass brand. I feel it. I'm happy to be even honored to be possibly partnering with Josh here on that project. But yeah, I mean these two are to me like the super couple, the power couple that so to speak who just got married. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. So fun to be married.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that a lot.
You didn't sound like it. Enjoying that a lot.
I'm going to try that again. I freaking love being married. It is like the coolest thing that I've experienced yet.
I like that one better.
It was like so nonchalant. They were like, I like being married. I like being married, period.
It's fun. It's real fun.
So you guys got married at the place that you guys were showing me, and was it Encinitas?
Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach.
Yep.
Laguna Beach. Okay, so was that close to? That's not close to Daniel. Laguna Beach he's in Encinitas.
Yeah, we're about 45 minutes north of Encinitas in Orange County, and it's just this beautiful spot my mom and dad got married in, so it was really special.
And you guys did it up very differently this time, right? I mean, you do everything differently, but like with the wedding, what was different about it? I know there was something unique about how your wedding is compared to most traditional weddings.
Yeah, so number one, it was a retreat wedding, which was our concept that we created because we felt like, number one, we hold retreats, but number two, we felt like with the merging of two families, a lot of times it gets to be this like evening time until people are actually close together. Maybe somebody is a little bit drunk, it takes a little bit for people to get comfortable. And we know in the retreat world that when you start getting into these retreat exercises, everybody gets really close really fast. So the wedding had retreat experiences throughout it. And then also the other cool part was we started with a Yogathlete workout, meditation, and gratitude. That set the day off.
Oh, wow. Yes. That's so different because most weddings you start off by like appetizers, getting drunk, and then you're like your mode has gone into like depressed mode. Your body's kind of like getting kind of sleepy, but then you start dancing when the music comes on. So that's different. Like you're charging your body with movement, getting blood flowing, That's so unique. That's
Yeah.
so,
I got to give a shout out to the Mystic Misfits who were there
what
helping us
up?
host the wedding, and they were literally just keeping it elevated with bangers
Oh, that's awesome.
nonstop.
So many
And
bangers.
and if you don't know what bangers are, that's just when you get the entire crowd just thriving to one beat, just feeling that, and everybody's jamming, everybody's dancing. So this was not an experience where there was anybody on the outside watching. The whole entire party was just dancing, from everybody from the toddlers to the 100-year-olds. We were having a blast.
Man, it was like a permanent live concert going on.
Oh
It
yeah,
was.
you know it.
And everybody was fueled up we had a keg of kombucha. We had a gluten-free cinnamon roll cake made with coconut palm sugar. And we
I love
had
it.
green juice shots. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I mean, people that are probably listening to this right now, like, what in the freaking world?
What kind of high class hippie thing is this?
Yeah, right. But no, that's so badass. Like going back to what you were saying about retreats and retreat experiences, for people that are not familiar with that, and I've gone through several of them, but do you mind sharing a few of those experiences? Like, what did you? Was that too personal? Are you even open to sharing?
Anything is on the table. We
of
we
course.
would love to.
We
get as
gotta
personal as
walk. We
possible.
gotta walk our talk. Let's do it.
All right, get it. Let's go. Share one.
Yeah, so I think like the most helpful example of it, because we are a couple, is like a communication that a lot of couples generally wouldn't have in their relationship, which is one of the reasons I feel like we have something very special. So in a retreat, you might find yourself in the middle of a circle sharing something that you most don't want everyone else around you to know about you. And by sharing that, what's most personal, we say what's most personal is most universal. So when you share your most personal thing that you're most afraid to tell everyone, it ends up being the thing that connects you with everybody the most. So we apply that to our relationship all the time. If we're in a retreat setting, we'll apply it there. But I think, a lot of times for us, it's when we get into a disagreement or an argument, we use these principles where, if Josh I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head that happened recently that we could really show somebody what it's actually about.
I like that. Well, I mean, I say our typical experience is usually when I'll say something to Steph that is maybe from a place of constructive criticism, and then she takes it immediately as being criticized.
Yeah.
And then she'll step into this almost father-daughter archetype, or maybe like even just some type of leadership, where I take the leadership role and she immediately comes as student and feels very maybe beaten down. And instead of us fighting and just going at it and it becomes this imbalance or this miscommunication, I notice Steph will stop a lot of times and say, I'm allowing myself to feel very hurt by your comment, but I want to figure out a way that we can, allow this to be something that's constructive and a win-win for both of us.
Yeah.
And so by her being vulnerable and saying that she's actually feeling very hurt, but not stabbing me with the comment back, like, why would you say that? Or I can't believe that you would ever think and call me fat or anything. It's an expression, a detachment from that.
Yeah, which by the way, sometimes reactively, of course, does happen. We're humans, and sometimes there's reactions that come out, but we have this context with each other where we've connected on such a deep level that we understand each other's triggers, and we're constantly finding new ones. But to give you guys context on that, when I might feel like he's criticizing me, we both know that from my past, I felt like the leaders in my life were they would always I would think, oh, this person's here to support me and love me, and I'd trust them. And then they'd turn around and either embarrass me or make fun of me or tell me I was dumb. So I have this internal thing that wants to, whenever Josh criticizes me, it wants to just rear its ugly head and just defend itself and try and not get hurt. So it's these two things coming up against each other. And of course, my trigger always triggers his trigger. That's kind of how it works. And that's where massive growth comes from, and why relationships are so powerful, because what triggers me and the way I act triggers him and the way he acts.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I mean,
Yeah.
that's extremely powerful. And like, I mean, I think most people hearing this right now, I would imagine, maybe not. I would imagine that people that are listening to this right now in this moment, they'd be thinking, "Man, I don't know if I could ever do that." So, my question to both of you, like, is what is needed? Like, what kind of prerequisite is needed for you to even harbor a relationship like that, or even be able to hold such a container to do so?
I
That's
would
awesome.
I would say number one is an open mind and an open heart, like a willingness. Because as you said, it could seem quite overwhelming to somebody who's just experiencing hearing about this for the first time. But if there's a willingness there, every step falls into place and builds and grows to the space that we're currently explaining.
Yeah. And I'll say too, the big thing is being willing to take ownership of your emotional state, willing to take ownership of what you're experiencing. And sometimes that in and of itself can take a little bit, can take some practice, or can take being in a certain container where it's safe to do that. I know a lot of times in that same scenario we were discussing a minute ago, where Steph might get reactive to me, or perhaps I'm reactive to her. If I can just tell her, and all the guys out there can probably relate to this, if I could actually stop and tell her when I'm mad that I'm actually just scared.
Oh.
Really scared right now that either people aren't perceiving me the way, maybe I can't provide the way I want to as a man for her, or maybe I don't feel like I'm meeting the expectations of the people around me. And so maybe I get mad and frustrated. And if I can learn to own that and express that, that's where the real magic starts to happen. And so, it really takes getting to know what's under the surface in you, and being able to like really own that and take ownership. That's a huge one.
Do you feel like for most people, is it like a thing where you have to become self-aware before you get into a relationship, or is it something that you're still continuously learning about? Like, this trigger makes me aware that I am feeling X emotion, and then from there, you go on and make your own insight. But is it more of like a prerequisite before you get into a relationship, or is it something that you can learn along the way?
I think if you're single right now, then it's the best type of work you can start doing to be tilling the soil for a really healthy relationship, to be attracting the right relationship. And if you're already in a relationship, it's totally fine too, to start now. So I would say that, I've seen this work to like literally heal relationships that are on the verge of divorce, or like maybe so torn apart they barely even speak to each other. So I don't think that necessarily, I would say yes, ultimately it's a great prerequisite. Like everybody should be being taught this type of communication. But if you're already in a relationship, then this is like something that I believe is crucial, and it can start from anywhere, because once you really tap into this and see how you're operating in a much more effective way of communicating, it seems to erase all the past that maybe a relationship has, all the damage, quote unquote, damage that has been done in a relationship up to the present moment. And you can realize we can move past that now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that. And I think, what's interesting to me, I don't know if you guys see this, but it's like for a lot of people, including myself and even past relationships, it's been this kind of situation where almost running on a program where it's like, this happens, this person says this, and then I run down a rabbit hole of ABC emotions that may have been started or sourced from something in the past, and then I'm not even aware it's happening. It's just kind of on an autopilot. And then to actually acknowledge those things that are happening that are on autopilot is scary, because that means that you have to look at yourself in a very vulnerable and like almost like open way where everything is bare and you feel naked, and then you feel like you're insecure and maybe you don't have all your shit together, and then that's also a scary place to be. So I would imagine, I mean, I myself have felt this in the past, that a lot of people feel that and then feel afraid to open up to their partner, because what are they going to say about me? Like you were saying, like, am I enough of a man? Am I afraid of this and that? Like all these things come up, and maybe your partner doesn't even think any of that about you. But
Mm-hmm.
you think that about yourself, and that's kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it can be so powerful to share those fearful thoughts with your significant other. And of course, doing it with a context, which is why we do the work that we do, to make
Yep.
sure that both parties are on the same playing field, of understanding of what's happening and what's going on, and each other's desire for growth together. But once you're able to have that context, like we were working with a client once, and he said to us, he's like, I'm so afraid that if I shared all this with the woman that I want to be with, that she wouldn't want anything to do with me. She would think I'm a feminine
Dang.
man who can't take care of her, and
Mm.
that I'm weak, and that all this stuff. And, we were able to say to him, there is the perfect match for every single person. And there are, there's people who are seeking that exact thing in a relationship. Like there might be a female who wants that balance. And when she hears that you have those fears, she might just melt completely and say, I've been looking for a man that I could feel his emotions and feel his heart all of my life. And truly, I think that's when we break that barrier of the physical, of like, oh, I'm just attracted to that person. I'd love to talk to them or date them. Then we break through that barrier and we get to the heart and the soul. And that's the lasting layer of it. So if you are attracted to a person on a soul level, on a deep level, I think if we're able to bare our hearts, everybody has something embarrassing that they think that somebody would leave them for, whether it's a friend or a significant other or a family member. And the truth of the matter is, when we really get real, the other person is able to say, I've felt that way too. I've been there. I'm afraid of this, and you're able to connect on a deeper level than you ever thought possible.
Wow. I mean, it's like, I mean, for people too, what I'm thinking about immediately when you're saying that is like connecting on a deeper level. Doing that is that, for someone to even get in touch with the fact that they're being reactive in the moment. Like, say, for example, like say, Steph, Josh, you guys have a conflict, like you guys are not agreeing on something, and maybe you're starting to react to each other. Like, how do people even begin to realize that they're reacting? Like how do they even prevent themselves from going down so far down the rabbit hole that it becomes toxic? And maybe they have to get toxic for them to feel the opposite. I don't know, but like, how do you even become aware when you're in it, when you're in the freaking hurricane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked that, because I was just thinking that same thought, like, okay, well, what's the first step that somebody could take in this action? And essentially, it's like the second that you're upset by something, by the other person, like it could be as extreme as like for women, like he just checked out that girl's butt, or it could be as
Happens a lot.
It happens a lot. And and or it could be something as basic as like, I can't believe he never puts the toilet seat down. Like little things, and I'm using like real life examples here. And like honestly, just to give that example with like checking out someone else's butt, I think just to give further context to anyone, like that's one of those things that as women, a lot of times we feel like, oh my God, if he's looking at that woman's butt, then he automatically thinks she's more attractive than me and he's going to want to leave me. Those are the fearful, real, honest thoughts that sometimes we as women think. And the truth of the matter is, like, Josh and I, with this context that we're talking about, we're able to go into a space where if he checks out somebody's butt, I'm like, are you sexually attracted to her, or did she have a nice body? I'm like, I'd love to know like really what's happening in his brain and know his honest thoughts. And it gets to a point where even if he was looking at her in a sexual way, and he says that to me, it's like, it's so much better to me for me to know that he's going to always be honest with me, and he's always going to be real and authentic. And I think the reason that people do leave other people in a lot of circumstances, not all, the reason somebody leaves someone or cheats on someone is because the other person's not getting a need met. and a need's not being met because they're not speaking that they need it, or the other person's not asking, what do you need? And so I think a lot of times, it's harmless when a guy checks out a girl's butt. Like, you guys are programmed to look at a woman's physical structure. Like, it just catches your eye. Sometimes you can't even control it. And what's something to really be worried about is if you're not truly connecting on an authentic communication level of asking your partner or the person you want to be your partner, what do you need? What needs are not currently being met for you? And if it's like, it could be all across the board, but it's just so important to have that communication, because you can get 50 years down the road and have a miserable relationship because he needed something and he never asked for it, and she could have easily given it to him if she knew that he wanted it, but she never knew. So it's such a shame when you hear that kind of relationship.
Yeah. And I'd also, to elaborate more, I think Steph covered the one area of how if somebody sees something that alarms them, they can really take some type of action to start creating a conversation. That's really powerful. And the other thing is, when you're to develop self-awareness about what's really going on, I think the number one tool that I learned about 6 years ago has changed my life forever. And it's really a good self-awareness tool in the moment is you got to remind yourself this one phrase: the issue is never the issue.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Like, if you can really tap into that and really just like adopt that as something that is like a key phrase you use, and this doesn't have to be even in the moment. It can almost be any time of day, but especially when you're feeling that fire or like almost engaging in an argument or fear or frustration or anxiety, if you can just ask yourself, what's the real issue here? Because, arguing about looking at a girl's butt is always going to result in there's a deeper issue, a much deeper issue that both of us get to experience and express.
Gotcha.
I think that's the biggest way that people can tap into that, as far as like in the moment. And both partners or person, if they're practicing on their own, need to have that number one priority is talk about what's the real issue here. And the other thing is just jump into these type of communities that are thinking this way, being this way. I mean, start practicing this now so it's in a different container, so that when you get into the real moment, you're more aware of how to handle it.
I mean, because we're seeing this across the board. Like, usually we stereotypically will hear about men that have a hard time expressing their emotions per se, but now, I mean, it's coming out even more that women also, men and women both, have their own thing going on about expressing what they're feeling, whatever, or at least letting whatever is coming up to come up, and then from there really be able to express it to their partner or feel safe enough to express it to their partner, and then from there grow as a couple together. So, you always hear like, oh man, yeah, even in a lot of like relationship blogs, I think it's changing now. It's shifting to more of like it's happening on both sides of the spectrum. But for a while, it was always just about, men are not opening up, and that's changing too. But then now the female side is also like, on our side as well, there seems to be an issue about not opening up, and whether it's stemming from this fear of men not being transparent or not, I'm not sure. But it's just an interesting dynamic that now it's pretty clear, it's out there that on both sides, the real issue is a fear of not being able to express what you need, when you need it, and in what capacity the relationship as an entity by itself can grow. And so what I wanted to almost ask you guys is, like, do you guys almost see like your relationship as a separate entity? Is it like Josh Tarnofsky, entity one, yoga athlete, blah, 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 money cat, all these different things are just like one thing. And Steph Hendel is an entity, and then the relationship of Steph and Josh is an entity by itself that needs to be nurtured and taken care of. Just like Steph by herself, money cat by himself, and Josh by himself.
That's deep, dude. I like it.
Yeah. Super glad you asked that.
I personally feel that way, and I know that that's been a passion of mine, and I'm sure there's a lot of different like philosophies on beings, intermingling throughout the seasons of their lives and all that. But I've always looked at it as we must become one whole being, or recognize that we are a whole being, first and foremost on this earth. And then when we merge with another being or even a collaborative, there is a whole other entity of that unity. And so what's always stuck out to me is people used to joke about the what's for dinner complex people would get once they got married. And it's this idea that you start to lose yourself because you stop making decisions for yourself along the way, because you get dependent on somebody, like, what's for dinner? And you expect that every single day. And there's a fine line between, having that balance where you can actually co-create and go back and forth and communicate to know that there's always going to be proper support, versus just expectation that could potentially not be met. And then somebody doesn't know how to handle themselves within a relationship. So I think it's important to always be like, I'm Josh, she's Steph. Together we get to be Stosh. And Stosh is its own relationship. Got its own set of, because like we were saying in the beginning, when our different archetypes and our different stories come together, they start to create this other thing that you deal with, at least for our personal experience. Whereas individually, we may not go through those with other people we interact with. So there's different stories that happen within a relationship than individuals typically. And so it's important to be well-rounded enough to handle all the stories you have, and then handle the stories when you go into a relationship.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And by stories, what I mean is belief systems, the way that you operate in the world.
What's an example of a story for somebody who's just hearing about this?
Yeah, well, for example, I might just have a story about my success as Josh Tarnofsky and who I am. And I need to really be that being that what my soul's mission on this earth was. That doesn't mean it can't interact with Steph, but I have a different story about that than when I'm with Steph. And so when I'm with Steph, there might be another story of me learning to balance masculine and feminine energy. And I have a story about how I interact with a female in my life based on how I love my mom and my mom in my relationship, or, based on maybe other females in my life. Yeah. So that's a whole other story that can come up. And that's when I think that's why you see a lot of really successful businessmen lose themselves when they get to a certain level, and then they try to merge over into relationships. Things just go wacky because they're not taught to deal with the different stories, and they can let it all get confused.
Yeah, emotionally meshed. It's
I'll say business people, not businessmen, but business people in general. When the relationship kicks in, it gets kind of confused.
Yeah, I definitely believe that you must have each your own story and then have one together as a couple, because otherwise it's intense. We tried it when we first got together. It was very beginner speaking, connecting consciously. It was very new, and so we've grown into the connection that we have now. But yeah.
It's interesting. I got back from New York. I gave a talk out there, which was amazing. I gave a talk and did a workshop for a bunch of coaches out there. And a lot of these people out there that were coaches or business owners, some of them were 7-figure earners. They were just doing really well. And I was talking to them. This is more of, a conscious group of entrepreneurs, but men and women. And whether it was a woman or a man, they all said the same thing to me, which I don't really hear often, because mostly entrepreneurs are hustle, grind, put your head down and just work. And then they don't mention anything about support systems or family or your partner or who you're with. But this group seemed to talk a lot about who they were with romantically, right? So it was the reason, they would often say, the reason why I'm successful is because in some way or some fashion, I really put my time to strengthen the relationship first. And then from there, it spilled over into my business and it flourished. But not only that, my partner had a hand in some way or some fashion, whether directly into the business or it was simply by way of us getting better as a couple, as the entity of the relationship got better, and hence the entity of, for example, of Josh got better, because the entity of Stosh was amazing. So I thought that was a really fascinating idea that I hadn't heard much of in the entrepreneurial space, but seems to be happening more and more for these big earners, So that was pretty cool for me to hear. I was like, oh, that's badass.
That is beautiful. And it seems like it's aligning or maybe a paralleling with this raising of consciousness in our collective ego, that there's no longer this just like work, hustle mentality and then the family suffers, but people finding the balance. Because I definitely can respect what people are tapping into there. Because I think definitely relationships and businesses and our bodies and everything is a reflection of our inner health. So, if your relationship is struggling, then it's going to show up in your business in some way, whether it's maybe you're making a lot of money, but maybe your organization's unhappy, or there's all kinds of little nuances to that. So you're right. As a holistic elevation of you, it's important to really be able to have healthy relationship as well, like romantic relationship. That's super cool.
I mean, it makes sense too. I mean, like, there's a guy named Simon Sinek. You may have heard of him. He's a pretty amazing speaker, and he talks about this too in the in the entrepreneurial space itself. It's like we often look at whether you have employees or not. We look at employees as sometimes these people that are just doing work for us, and we see them as numbers. And when we do that, we forget that what they're really working for, you or whatever it may be, is for the vision at the end of the day. But beyond that, they want to be able to say that, oh my God, my boss is freaking amazing, and my boss is family, and I connect, and I have a strong relationship, and it's beyond just the typical corporate ladder, so on and so forth. So even within the space of an entrepreneur in your business per se, if those relationships are not strong, it spills over into the vision, into your clients, into everything around the brand, so on and so forth. So it's just, I think now everyone's becoming more privy to that fact, because for the longest time, and still there may be some older businesses that are kind of antiquated with this. For the longest time, you've seen people that will say, I don't have time to do that shit. The world is out to get me. I have to compete against Apple. I have to compete against whatever it may be, right? To freaking kick ass. And when they come with that mentality, the brand suffers, the vision suffers. Because what people are really buying is, they're not really just buying your product and what it has to offer. They're buying you. They're buying what connects to it, right? I thought that was powerful.
Yeah, I'd love to share a little hack on that too, if that's all right, Samir. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So I feel like the hack in the brand and the business is truly, authentically, unapologetically being who you are. And this spills over into, the energy, the authenticity. And that's how the relationship goes to that space of fueling the business, is when you're truly yourself. And I find that us, as well as the clients that we work with, the people that we experience this with in retreats that we're holding, they're constantly coming up to a point where they feel like it's not okay to be who they are. They don't have permission to be themselves. And I think that's where the conscious connection that we're talking about is so powerful, is that by expressing yourself to the other person, you're saying, hey, this is how I truly feel. This is me. It might not be pretty. It might not be nice. It might not be cool. But this is me, and this is how I feel right now. And the more you can do that, especially with the person you love, the more the layers just break off of you, and you become free and energized, and your business just thrives because you're able to be your true, authentic self with your partner, or with your business partner, or with your employees, or with your, it's just it's I imagine it as armor that's just breaking off of your body to free you, by it being okay to be who you are and to have the thoughts that you have.
Yeah. There's definitely a big difference between being a strong and powerful leader and being that person that doesn't need anybody because you're doing it all on your own and having that type of armor on. So it's two different worlds that people confuse a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So I mean, when people hear, I mean, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. But like, when you hear the word authentic, right, I hear this a lot in a lot of spaces. I use it myself. When you hear the word authentic and being yourself, like, how do we get practical about that? Because like, we hear it. It sounds beautiful. It sounds just amazing, right? To be yourself. But I often hear from people around me is like, how do you be yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love answering this question because I am a classic case of the person who has always been trained to give an F. Like, I cared so much about what everyone thought of me that it was tearing my life apart. It was making me miserable and sick and unhappy and everything. So yeah, in a world where we just want everybody to like us, it's allowing ourselves to, the word unapologetically keeps coming up for me here about this. It's like, unapologetically be who you are. And sometimes it's hard to release that, to be like, well, how do I be unapologetic when I really care what everybody thinks? I really want everybody to like me. And that's, to me, in my own personal journey in my life, it's been a practice. It's been like a daily practice where each day I stretch myself out of that comfort zone and I get better and better at it as each day goes on. But it's getting to a space where I no longer want to be a person that somebody just likes and thinks is nice. I want to be polarizing. I want to, either people love me or they hate me. And to me, that's a sign that I'm being authentic, because if I'm authentically me, not everybody's going to love me, but the people who do love me deeply, and I love them deeply. And it's a beautiful connection. And the people that don't love me, that's okay. We're not meant to be together. But for me to experience life on a deep, true level, I needed to have a perspective shift. And the perspective shift for me was, I no longer want to be the person who's just nice and just liked. I want to be the person who is so authentically who she is that it inspires people and it makes people like live their dreams and take action.
Yeah. And I think to tie in what Samir's talking about too, like in a workspace or really connecting with your staff, or being that, making it okay to be unapologetic, to be received by a lot of people, is this idea of being vulnerable. Like, to me, vulnerability is what I've experienced to be the number one thing or piece of the puzzle or way of being that catalyzes all this stuff to work. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable and share your fears, or share whatever you're feeling that maybe feels out of control to you, with your employees or with your spouse or just with your peer group, when you can really do that, that's when you start, creating the space for everybody around you to feel that way. Because there's so many, I think you maybe led into this with like a boss work experience, I think. If not, you can correct me. But, like, most of the time, bosses are this like feared person on a pedestal. People don't want to screw up around them. But imagine if a boss came in there and said, I'm feeling really scared that we're not going to do X, Y, and Z this month. I have a lot of anxiety. I'm not sleeping well at night. But I want you to know that I'm here to support you all. And whatever I can do, let me know. People would honestly work 3 times harder than the 2 times harder they are of that being scared of that person on the pedestal.
Absolutely. And it's like, I guess, the other thing I wonder about is like, whenever you guys, like, if you can think it to a time where when you first were just like, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to say exactly what's on my mind, and I'm going to be authentically myself, and I'm going to be unapologetically me in this moment, whatever. And then in that time that you said that, you received some flack for it. Can you think of a time when that happened? Like the first time it happened? Like, what did you go through emotionally? What happened? How did you work through it? And how were you able to build like that muscle, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, it actually happens to me a lot still. Like, I find myself feeling those little triggers pop up. And I know for me, it was even something that it started out small. when it would happen, but still affect me. And it was actually when Steph and I talked about doing our retreat wedding on Facebook. And it really felt like the first time we had put something super like strong out there that felt like it was somewhat opinionated, the specific video we put out. And this lady who had been following a lot of the stuff we do in our circle of retreat people, she just started like ripping us up, like just ripping us up, like basically calling us a cult and saying that we're just trying to take people's money and all this stuff. And it was probably the number one thing that I was most afraid of in being a leader, that somebody would, basically like try to persecute me for wanting to help people because of their own fears. And so, yeah, it took me like almost 3 days to really like let that go and stop having that conversation of what I might respond to her on Facebook publicly. And so for me, there hasn't been an exact way of like necessarily like letting it go quickly. But the advice that one of my mentors gave me, who's wildly successful online, gets a lot of haters all the time. He just said, you know what? Literally step one is if you're getting haters like that, it's because, like Steph said, you're being polarizing. And so that means you actually are creating your tribe. You actually are getting the people out of your life that don't need to be there, really don't care about you, because you actually are following your heart and doing what you want. And two, don't be anything but love to people. You offer them a chance to drink your Kool-Aid, whatever it is you're selling. And if they don't want it, if those people are just like, no, F you, then that's okay. There's no obligation there. And so just let them go. And if they're not going to stop, just block them. Just block them out of your life, because there's no need to keep that around. It's not necessary. I think at that point it's not running from it, but it's like, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate that.
Yeah, and I think an example of in my life, I was able to, like, Josh and I have a team that we work with, a team of employees for our business. And I had something come up where I had learned a new skill. I learned a new perspective in looking at sales, and I was really excited about it. I came back. I shared it with the team. I was like, this is going to be fantastic. We're going to be able to reach more people. We're going to be able to impact more lives. It's going to impact all of your lives because you guys are going to benefit from, financially and as well as like emotionally. And so I was really excited. I got on my first call to practice this technique, and the person that I was talking to said yes. They were really excited about the opportunity. They wanted to do it. I celebrated with the team, and then shortly after, the person who had said yes to the opportunity came back and said, actually, I'm not going to do it. It's not a good fit right now. I don't have the money. I'm not able to do it. And for me, that was a deep moment of, I'd hyped the team up. I got everybody excited. We were going to impact lives. They're going to make more money, do this stuff. And I had to come back to my team in a meeting and explain to everybody, Josh included, that this didn't work. It didn't happen, and not didn't work for forever, but in this experience that literally everybody was going to benefit because everybody was a part of the process of bringing this new person on board with us. And so financially, of course, it impacted I really thought they were going to make an extra bonus. Everybody thought that they were going to have somebody new to teach and pour into and share their gifts with. And for me, it was that moment where I had to speak to the team, and I got really vulnerable, and I explained to them my truths and my authenticity in that moment. And I cried because I felt like crying. And I told them I felt like a failure, like I failed them, and that it was my greatest fear, and just everything. I just got really real, really authentic. And I think in the past I would have feared that if I'd been authentic with my employees, and honestly, if I'm being really honest, I still had the fear quickly pop up in my mind of, these people are going to want to leave. They're going to be like, I'm out. Like, number one, who's this crazy lady that's crying and telling me she feels like a failure? Number two, I'm out. This is not cool. She didn't keep to her word. And I couldn't have been more the opposite of that thought. Like literally everyone was banded together as a team even closer. Everybody's like, I've felt that before. I've been there. I understand. And we built up stronger. We're like, you know what? As a team, we're going to become this powerful entity together. And I can't tell you how many of the people on the team were just like, Steph, thank you so much for crying. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and authentic in that moment, because I didn't lose the fact that I was the leader and I'm leading the team. Being a leader doesn't mean that you can't cry. Being a leader doesn't mean that you can't say, hey, I effed up, or I feel like a failure right now. I'm still going to, guide us to great things. But in this moment, I'm having a moment. And the support of the team was fantastic. Everything was beautiful. And it was really locked in for me that authenticity wins.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing that you did that. And I think, that's something that, I mean, I even feel, because to even fathom being that open and that vulnerable, I feel all sorts of things come up in me with a team, with my team. And I've done that individually with each of them, but to do it in a group setting, I'm not sure. Did you do it in a group setting?
I did.
Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. I mean, like, to do it in a group setting is a different game, because then you have the circle rather than just a one person to one person eye contact. And you have all these eyes collectively as a group. The energy is like elevating. That's a crazy, amazing experience. I think that's why retreats are powerful. That's why you have this circle of people that are all feeling what you're feeling, and everyone is making it okay, and people are getting inspired by you feeling what you're feeling, and it makes it okay for them to feel or even empathize with you because they felt that too. Like you said, that's freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's particularly empowering, because if somebody is looking to you to be the leader, you're the leader in their life, you're the boss, for them to see that you could be an awesome leader and a boss that people look up to and cry and be real, it's like, whoa, that opens up a world of opportunity and freedom.
Yeah. And I really think, too, the one way that I've started flexing my muscle a lot more in conditioning us around this idea of bouncing back and not letting the haters get to you is really detaching your identity from either your business or from your social media or whatever it is you're doing. Like, I think so many people have attached their identity, which then you talk about those stories they have of how the world views them, like with the story they believe. So when somebody says something negative or something doesn't work, all of a sudden you're like, oh no, woe is me, I can't take this anymore. It's like, dude, it's your freaking Facebook page. It's your one sale in your business. It's not, but a lot of people, like, I've done it myself. I'm talking to myself here. I've struggled with, not making the sale or getting a negative feedback. It's like, all of a sudden my identity's attached. But when I really heard that, like, yo, notice your identity is not your business. It's not your Facebook page. Those are just inspirations. Your business is an opportunity to serve people and change their lives. Your Facebook page is an opportunity to inspire people and really see who's in your tribe. And that's it. Like, after that, if your identity is wrapped up in it, then you might be in it for the wrong reasons, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I put up a Facebook ad recently, actually, to what you're saying. And in the Facebook ad, it clearly states this is not a free program. But if you want to, find out more, we'll get on a quick 15-minute chat, and we'll talk about, your options. And everyone started commenting on the post saying, what's your price? What's your price? What does it cost? What does it cost? And so I would comment and say, hey, yeah, I'd love to discuss prices. We have low-end and high-end options available, and we'll get a quick call, and we'll talk about it. And it kept coming up over and over, but I wanted to be public with my answers so no one thought I was being shady or weird. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they started banding together and being like, this is a scam, you should be sharing your costs, blah, blah, blah. And then this one woman PM'd me and was like, you said you're being transparent about everything and you're being open about what this program is about, but then you're not sharing your price. So this sounds like another scam. And like, the more I kept listening and like reading the word scam, the more I began to attach myself with the word scam. And then I was just like for 3-4 days. I was like, fuck, like, oh my God, these people have no freaking idea how
Yeah.
this works. I was getting, you can even hear me getting triggered right now. Like,
Yep.
I was so fucking triggered, so upset. It's like, how dare they? They have no
Right.
idea,
Mhm.
right?
And if anybody knows you, you're probably the most like over delivering and value dude on like, in the fitness game and in like the healing movement game.
Yeah.
And like that's the part that can get so frustrating. I
Mhm.
totally know what you're talking about, man, because you are like the most authentic, transparent guy out there.
I mean, I guess like that's why I'm just like, I'm giving you I'm giving you all this free. I even like offered them in that moment, like, hey, I'll be willing to talk you through a quick little guide of how to like start fixing your body. And still, she's like, sounds like a scam. And I was like, you know what? I need to just like detach from this ad for a while. And what was interesting
Yep.
is when I did detach from the ad, like you guys were saying, and almost pulling and remembering, hey, who am I? Like, who am I again? And after doing that for a while, and then also coming back to the ad from a different space made all the difference. Because when I decided, okay, all these people are hating, they barely know about the business. They're always saying we're scams. I just started to take those comments and I would just hide them, right? I would just hide the comments. I don't want people to see it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to hide it. I don't want to see it. And
Yep.
then what happened was all of a sudden I was like, what do I want? Like, who do I want to serve? And
Right.
when I said that in my mind, all of a sudden the people that began to comment, I was like, I applied. I'm ready to wait for my wait for my call. And all of a sudden I made the first call, made a sale, and I was like, boom.
Yep.
You know, I let all these people like get to me, and it was like such a, and I guess that's like that was like a very polarizing moment for me where I'm like, well, who do I want? It's
Yep.
either them or these wonderful people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think there's another example where being yourself, even on the online space, is so crucial because, I mean, it shows, it spills over into every little thing, whether it's a Facebook comment or you're the business owner dealing with all the barrage of things people are saying. I've had people even say things on videos to me, which is just like, oh, okay, I'm let that sit for a while. Uh, you know, but it makes me think then, like, do we have to, and maybe it's a question to both of y'all, do we have to be equal parts giving a fuck and then equal parts not giving a fuck? In the sense that I care enough about what you say because I have empathy and I'm a human being. And I really care about what you have to say because I want to make things better. But I also don't care about what you say enough to be like, yo, I'm not going to take it that personally to where I attach my identity to this. And also beyond that, I don't begin to attach all these assumptions of myself, meaning that you say this, that means I am not good enough or I'm not cut out to do this X, Y, and Z. Is that what we need as human beings? Like equal parts I care, equal parts I don't care?
Yeah. I mean, what comes up for me immediately is that you definitely need the part of you that respects everybody as a human. And I don't know if that equates to an equal part of caring about what they're actually saying. But I think respecting everybody as a human is like, that's a being that obviously has trust issues, or that's a being who is dealing with their own junk. So like being open that if there was a way that they want to connect, cool. If it doesn't drain you in some way and there's some opportunity to connect to them to like guide them to higher ground, cool. But if it's something that is just them trying to get attention because they obviously have nothing better to do than just talk about how they think you're a scammer, then I think you got to be like 100%. Or as far as it's almost like two different baskets, apples and oranges. You got to be 100%. Don't give a fuck and go and just focus on the people that really want your message and are there.
Yeah.
So I think it's like I don't know if there's any part of like kind of care what they're saying at all, honestly. It's definitely a part of respect that they're a human and, you're such a good natured dude
Yeah.
that there's no need to say anything back or even try to like defend it. It's
Totally.
strictly like, if they want to come with you, cool. If they don't, cool too, but you're going to focus on what is working, and that's where you're 100% like that. So I don't know if that answers your question. That's what came up for me when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Go ahead, Steph.
I was just gonna chime in on that I agree with Josh saying that and this is something I've trained myself to do because, as I said, I was a people pleaser. I wanted everyone to like me. Still have that come out for myself quite frequently. But it's not caring what the other people think of me or my program or my course, but also feeling like because I have the consciousness that I do have, I love to challenge somebody on their belief system out of deep love and care for them, as Josh said, as a human being. So I do like to, when somebody's blocks or their triggers come up, I like to give them a challenge out of love and find out, like, because a lot of times when somebody has a trigger, they're afraid that we're a fake or a phony or a scam, or they're afraid. Sometimes it's them, like they just don't have the money, or they don't have the time, or they don't have the whatever. When those things are coming up, that's their self-sabotage coming up because they know that you're about to help them. And they know that you're here to change their life. And that's that sabotage that comes up. Like, I'm really scared. Like, if it were to come down, like, if you were to talk to that person authentically, one-on-one, face-to-face, and get their truth, like, they would be like, I'm just scared you're going to screw me over. I'm just scared that you're going to hurt me. And I've been hurt so many times in my past that whatever. So I think the way that I come at it is from a mix of, like, I'm not going to take what you're saying to me as truth, and I'm not going to take it personal. And if I'm in the space with the time, I am going to challenge you, though, to say, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I believe in you, and I created this program to help you. And, it depends from person to person, but I like to challenge them, and I like to find out, like, if that's really, like, what's going on, or, like, let's really get into the deep depth truth of it. And there's deep connection that's found within that when somebody's willing to go there. Like, sometimes people won't be willing when I challenge them, and sometimes they will be. But when they are, it's so beautiful because they'll be like, Steph, you're the first person who's loved me this much. You're the first person who's cared about me enough to challenge me on this and break me through, because it's a belief. Like, if you believe somebody's going to scam you, then you are essentially, like, if you carry that your whole life, and I bet she thinks this about many people, that the program she's come in contact with, oh, that's got to be a scam. Oh, that's got to be a scam. Yeah. It's a protection mechanism. So if she carries that with her whole life, then she's going to live a very painful life. And so it's nice to just give them the opportunity for a choice of, hey, you could keep believing that and carry that the rest of your life, or you could potentially try my course and watch it prove every belief you've ever had wrong.
I like that. I like the challenging aspect, because then it is showing that you care. Like, you really do care, and you really love it. And it may be like, to some, it may be like, man, she's being really hard. But at the same time, like, that's to dig a little deeper and I really understand what that person is really trying to say underneath the veil of their volatile comment is, I mean, that's beast mode. I mean, then you're unstoppable.
Yep. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, just to even, like, switch gears a little bit, like, I mean, we've been hearing this theme, like, so far within our conversation, which is, whether it's in personal relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships, there's this theme of being authentic, being yourself, and encouraging others to do so in a tactful way. Is like, how do you feel like this kind of communication, this kind of relationship building, I mean, I almost see them as skill sets. Like, all these things you're talking about is building a skill. How do you think these skill sets have made your health better? Because I think people sometimes will hear this and be like, well, this is not health, this is psychology. And so it's like, like, how has it made your health better?
Like, welcome to the new frontier.
Yeah, right?
Oh, gosh. Well, essentially, for me, it's the reason that I created my course called Body Built by Love. It's truly all based off of these principles. And what that does for a woman, especially a woman who struggles to lose weight, a man too, I'm just speaking woman because that's usually who I serve as a client. But when a woman does this, she's able to truly be her authentic self. That's when weight can literally like come off so fast and so effortlessly, because we hold weight and fat. Fat is essentially protection. Fat's protection that we wear to protect ourselves from people or things or a harsh world. And so when we're able to release that fear of what somebody else is going to think or what somebody else is going to say, then we can just authentically remove the armor, the fat, the protection, and be our true, like, healthiest, happiest. So you can see weight loss. You'll see massive, massive, unbelievable energy increases when you practice this authenticity, being yourself, communicating who you truly are.
Yep.
We've seen crazy healings, like spontaneous healings of people, myself included, like lots of actual diseases, which is dis-ease, a lack of ease in the mind and the body. And when we aren't ourselves, we're not in ease. So disease forms. We've, oh my goodness. I could just rave and talk about like the health benefits of this for days. It's literally my life's work and my life's purpose. But Josh, what about you? What other benefits? Because I could ramble. I could go on a tangent here.
We're just gonna have to let her go. I think I don't want to hold back the momentum here. I mean, for me, it's a very personal issue because I watched my father battle cancer for 10 years when I was a child, and I always had this, like, something inside of me was telling me, like, what exactly we're talking about was the key to his success to beating cancer, and he actually had cancer 3 different times in 10 years. And I guess the first time he went into remission, he had made some changes in his life. And he was living this different lifestyle, had a little better diet, but not much better, just a little bit better. He got into remission. And then I started noticing around the same time that his business wasn't doing so well financially, and then stress kicked in and all that. Debt was getting up there. He went right back into cancer mode. And went there for like 2 more years, I think, and then he ended up getting back in remission as things got better. And then about 2.5, 3 years later, I think, he went back into cancer. At the same time, the business was kind of falling apart again. So, I noticed this direct correlation with his exterior life and how things were going versus the emotions that were attached to it. And my father grew up in an household where it wasn't okay to express your emotions. There's a lot of abuse, a lot of negativity. And if I think back, even listening to his mindset a lot of times, he was a great creator, but he also had a lot of that programming of just some different language that didn't allow him to be fully free. And so I saw this happen, and it was such a witness to this idea that he was trapped. He was in a prison of his own emotions, and he just couldn't let it out. He never really let it out in any way that I know of. And I'm 100% certain that's what created this cancer in him, and ended up ultimately ending his life earlier than what he had wanted. And so, for me, I've just seen it over and over again. This idea of, as Steph said, dis-ease, really being the state of your body and your mind not being at ease. It really is like the root of almost every disease that somebody has, almost every bodily issue. And when you can remove that, like, people are miraculously healing. We're seeing the weight drop off, and to the point where people are even, not even that strict on dieting or nutrition or anything, and they're still staying in great shape, great physical health.
Yeah, and the body's ability to respond to workouts and to heal from fitness really, really quickly, because your mind and your body are connecting. Amazing.
Definitely. And even like to testament to what you're just saying, some people are working out 7 days a week and eating like lettuce all the time. They're not losing weight. And once they tap into this emotional release, it's like, phew, everything's gone. Yeah. So, I think there's so much evidence nowadays. This is just 100% the truth.
Yeah, it's like, I'm glad you guys mentioned that, how like you can tap into your emotions and change your body, and you guys are seeing it across the board, across all your clients, everyone that
Yep.
you guys talk to. I'm glad you guys are mentioning that because I hear oftentimes almost like dumbfounded from the idea that you could heal yourself emotionally and then all of a sudden your physical body begins to get better is almost like a woo-woo concept. It's like, no, that's not real. But of course people need science to justify stuff, like, and now the
Yep.
science is coming out and saying it in the literature, and
Yep.
they're once they find the findings, the data, then they have to extrapolate from there and explain the physiological reasons why. So
Yep.
I was reading, and I'm glad you guys mentioned this, I was reading this in the literature, and the way they beautifully like laid this out. They're like, okay, you have this brain, and that literally like has these neurons and nerves that fall, like literally fall into your spinal cord, down to from your neck, down to your periphery, to your arms, to your body, so on and so forth. And then within the nerves that are falling from there, they're nerves between nerves and nerves that control other nerves.
Yeah.
And so like the body is almost like, not only are you affecting your body from like your thoughts and your emotions, but then also your body almost begins to have its own consciousness when you start to program these emotional programs in your body, which I thought was like blowing my mind already. So
Yeah.
if we have, for example, like let's be practical, people listening to this, I feel fear or I feel distress whenever my partner does X, Y, and Z, and the more they do it, the more I feel it. I don't even want to bring it up with them because then they get mad. It's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. This begins to fester, this begins to grow, and then, for example, Sally starts to feel this in her chest. Her muscles tighten up there. She feels it in her belly. She stops breathing, has shortness of breath. All these symptoms begin to happen. She's like, what the fuck is going on? That's practical situation. So at that point, the article was talking about this person now not only has sent this like message from the brain to the body that these are the physiological things that must happen because I'm choosing to feel the emotion and do nothing about it. Well, actually, I take it back. The way they explained it was beautiful. They're like, they are actually choosing to do something about it, and that is they're committing to the fear. They're committing to the fear, and the body is responding in kind with those symptoms. And then the body takes on, this is fucking nuts, the body becomes its own entity, takes on that program that's sent from the brain, and starts to run it as its own freaking program. So it becomes its own conscious being without your brain. Your brain's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. The body's doing whatever the hell it wants to right now.
Oh man.
And it blew my mind. I was like, what the freaking hell? You know?
Wow, dude, that's strong. What book is that?
It's not a book. It was actually, I read a lot of like PubMed articles, and it's just like a big database for like clinical journals and stuff like that. Of course, Big Pharma is like, I'm not going to let you guys see this shit. You have to really like dig deep to find it. I'll send it to you guys. It's fascinating.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fun because it's fun to see stuff like that because it really starts to, I guess, prove what it is that we are all seeing. I think you're seeing it as a healer in your training, your training modalities, and we're seeing it, with people in our weight loss and our coaching modalities. And it's like once people can find that space and shift out of whatever that body's new operating system is, that's the disease state or the emotional charged disease state. Yeah, it just goes away like that. I mean, instantaneously.
That's crazy. It's crazy. And like, you guys are talking about like fat as an armor. I think that's a cool concept to even like take on as a perspective because oftentimes, and this is becoming factually true, is like we do hold toxin, inflammation, stuff like that in our fat, and they're seeing it even in animals. Like when you eat an animal that's inflamed, oftentimes it's stored in their fat. We consume that, we get sick from eating the toxin that is stored in that animal's fat. And the same happens within our being. So whatever fear or charge you have around something is storing as some toxin or some inflammatory chemical. And then that armor gets thicker, like you guys were saying, and then you just can't seem to lose any weight, no matter how much freaking lettuce or celery sticks you put in your mouth. It doesn't freaking matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like the fat is swollen with guilt and shame and judgment and fear, and we literally wear it around all day long. So you can imagine anybody who's listening. I know Samir, you're very familiar with this, but you could imagine what that would be like to remove that, like how freeing, how energizing, how life altering that is to release that kind of fat and build your future body from a space of love. Like you're literally loving thoughts, loving conversations, loving, and like the world is not perfect. Things are not going to go perfect every day out of like beautiful hearts and rainbows and love, but like the intention and the consciousness is there to build from love, then that builds something very beautiful and very strong.
Yep.
And like to build from love, I keep saying love. I love the idea of building from love or having self-love or self-compassion. And maybe this is something that, I don't know if you guys agree, but maybe people that have a hard time showing compassion or showing love for others, maybe really the veil around that, the curtain around that's hiding what's really underneath that, is that they have a hard time giving that to themselves. And self-love, like building from love, I want to expand with that more. I want to get you guys' opinion on this. Building from love, like how do you even get practical about that? How do you start to love yourself? Because most people like that come to me, or probably come to you guys, I'm assuming, will come in and be like, oh, I freaking hate this thing on my arm. Look at my arm. They start shaking their arms in front of you. Like it's like a freaking chicken wing. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, oh, I get rid of this nasty ass thing. And like, how do you deal with that first and foremost, that whole scenario? But like beyond that, like how do you help someone that is disgusted with themselves and it's like, I fucking hate myself, and help them get inspired to love themselves and then keep loving themselves to change? Because I do notice this one thing: people that that are disgusted with themselves want to just freaking torture themselves to the ground in the gym. I'm like, that's not what we're going to do. So this is not the gym for you.
Yeah. Yep, that's strong, man. Wow, what an amazing observation.
Yeah, honestly, like I know a lot of times, like you have that woo-woo like vibe of like just do a million affirmations and just like tell yourself you love yourself and tell yourself, I'm this thin, fit person with the tight arms that don't jiggle when I shake them. And honestly, I think affirmations are great, but I think they only go so far. And so, like, there's something that needs to really overpower an affirmation if somebody's to use one. Because I have a lot of people that come to me, they're like, should I just say affirmations? Will that fix it? And I'm like, no, it can help, but it's not going to fix it. The first step to it is shifting your perception, shifting your belief and your mindset about yourself and your body. And that's going to be something that literally alters how you feel about the whole scenario. Like for me, the primary perception shift, foundational pillar of Body Built by Love is that your body is not something to hate. Your body is the vehicle for your purpose. And a perception shift like that is able to empower somebody, and we'll go deeper into that for them to really truly feel that, see that. But essentially, your body, we look at our bodies from a standpoint that we've been taught to look at them, and we see, oh God, this does not look skinny enough, this is not tight enough, this doesn't look this way, it needs to change, that needs to like tighten in that area. And really, it has nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. Your body is the vehicle for your purpose, meaning that you are here on earth with a purpose for a reason. You wouldn't be here if you did not have a purpose. And you've been gifted with this thing, this body. And the body is the thing that takes you to the people, the places, and the opportunities where you are supposed to live out your purpose, make the world a better place. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, you start valuing it in a different way. And you start saying, instead of saying, oh my God, I need to go like run 1,000,000 miles on the treadmill and try and get less fat. You're looking at your body and you're going, this is the vehicle that I've been given for my purpose, and I'm in what I'm in right now. But you know what? I'm so motivated to nourish this thing because I can fulfill my life purpose better if I'm taking care of this vehicle. And so the first immediate shift that somebody gets to make when they're going from, I hate this thing, I need it to look different, I don't like it, I don't like myself, to I'm building my body with love, is shifts in perception. And that's just one example, but changing the perception of what's really, truly happening.
Damn. I mean, like, yeah, purpose is the whole topic matter we could probably get into like for like another hour, because like purpose is fascinating to me, right? Because like, you know, if you think of purpose, people like will look at that and be like, and I hear this all the time because I first and foremost, like I feel that on so many levels when you said, I got like tingles down my spine when you said it, Steph. But secondly, when people hear the word purpose, and like almost like as your why, as to pull you towards your goals, so to speak, it's like then they get. I actually even Young, you guys know Young, my roommate Young. We were doing this exercise with him, and he was like, "What's my purpose?" And then he just like froze, almost like a deer in the headlights. He's like, "Oh shit! Like, what is my purpose? I don't know." And it was a beautiful moment because it woke him up. And then the next day, he like was crying a little bit. And today he got into nursing school, and he's like, "I want to serve people." And then he just started crying again. And it just opened up a whole like can of beautiful flowers for him, right? And it was like,
yes.
And I just sat there hugging him because he was just sobbing, and I was just like, "This is amazing." I started crying. I was like, "Oh my God, this is fucking amazing!" And then from there, he said this very distinct thing, and I hope people connect with this, because what Steph's doing, what Josh is doing, what we're doing all together collectively is simply to help you guys feel this process too. He said to me, he's like, "Oh, the reason why I really want to take care of myself is because if I'm not able to have a body that has enough energy, vitality, the feeling of confidence to speak, to support patients, to support the people around me, my godparents, their kids, my future wife, then it's not going to work. My purpose is not going to actualize." And I was like, damn. Okay. And so, I mean, that's a powerful moment. And the fact that you guys do a lot of that work to facilitate that, I don't see that much, around my immediate environment. Because my immediate environment for me in my world, right, is powerlifters, Olympic lifters, and they often deal with it like the gym is my therapy and the barbell is my therapy, right? So I think it's a beautiful thing that you guys are doing that you're facilitating that process, because I got to experience it firsthand in the past 2 days, and it broke me down in such a powerful way that it got me to reflect even deeper about what my purpose was. And just to feel that from Young was like, I don't know. I mean, that set me for the next year. Like, just to feel that, like, I've never experienced it so powerfully. I was like, oh, this soul is just like crying, and I'm just like crying with them, and we're crying for such a beautiful reason. So
hashtag woke.
Yeah, that's woke as fuck.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
I mean, that's living. That's experiencing life on the deepest level. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Shit. I mean, I feel like this podcast has started from one place and ended in another, and I feel like we could do this all night. But I would do this for another hour. But I did want to mention two more things before I have to go and start some more business things. Number one, I love asking this question to every guest, all guests we've had in the past two seasons of the show. The first question I have, and I've asked this to Daniel when he was on my podcast too, is, if you guys, both of you, and I think you already kind of have answered this to some degree in a beautiful way, if both of you knew that your lifetime right now was going to impact 7 generations from now. And the Native Americans used to say this to the people that were growing up in their teenage years. They would straight up ask them, okay, you're 12, 13 years old. What do you want to leave for 7 generations from now? What impact or change would you leave that would impact 7 generations? What would you say? Yeah.
That question. I would say be your authentic self unapologetically.
Boom.
That's it.
Love it. For me, it seems like this answer is very personal and also something that I strive to give to the world. And that is to learn how to self-realize. Like the knowledge of reprogramming yourself. Self-realization.
Like tapping into that process of doing it.
Yeah, I really think I look at the world not rigid like this, but like all computers. Like we're all humans are like computers and the software that goes in, you know, and I think all that software can be reprogrammed. And for me personally, there's very specific ways that you can, you know, analyze the software in your mind and then reprogram it. And so that process is an internal one. You know, it's a very yogic, Vedic process. And I think for me, I want the world to have that opportunity to know how to do that for themselves.
I love it. And you know, like the things that Josh and Steph are talking about that are bringing to the world of health, wellness, fat loss, you know, alignment, structural integrity, all that stuff is, I mean, we're seeing this across the board. There's no longer, you can't really hide from the idea that, you know, elevating your consciousness and elevating how you think and how you build skill sets around dealing with your emotional aspect of who you are is the key, you know, is the key to really changing your body. And there's no hiding, like, even like your Gary Vaynerchuk's and your Simon Sinek's and your Tim Ferriss's and all these people that are out there, like, and your Steph-Tarnofsky's and your Josh Tarnofsky's and all the people that are out there, like, it's there for a reason. They're saying it across the board because it's almost like allowing all of you to pull yourself out of this people mover, this matrix, and really understand that there's more to the body than just you know, thinking there's a cheat code of just intermittent fasting. It was a cheat code of CrossFit. It just doesn't. There's more to that, and when we get deeper, when we get really down to the root of it, I mean, there's some really freaking powerful change that can happen. And so, like, I appreciate both of you for doing what you do, because that's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much,
Samir. Thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah,
brother.
we appreciate your work. You make the world such a more alive and aligned place. It's beautiful. We tell anytime somebody says Austin, we're like, oh, let me tell you about it.
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, magical thing that you need to connect with.
Yeah, and you know, like, it's just, well, I think it's special too, and I want to make sure people know how to connect with you guys. But what I think is special too is that you guys are approaching it directly from that place. You know what I mean? Like, I go from it from the place of, let me assess your body, and then I take a look at it, and I kind of hide the medicine in the applesauce. You guys are like, fuck it, this is just who we are, bam, and then people are just like, oh shit, their whole lives are changed, and I think that inspires me to step up on a bigger level. But yeah,
talking about.
And so, I mean, how do people connect with both of you? If women want to work with you, Steph, or women or men want to work with you, Josh, how do they connect with you? How do they get in touch with you?
Best way to connect with me is to find me on social media. I'm at Steph-Hendel, STEPHHENDEL, on all the social medias. I also have a website, Steph-Hendel.com, and I would just say for anybody who's reaching out, please introduce yourself. Like, I love connecting and meeting new people, so please don't be a stranger.
Yep. And I'm on Facebook, Josh Tarnofsky. And in case it doesn't make it to the front of the podcast, my last name's Tarnofsky. F as in Frank, S as in Sam, KY. It's a tough one to spell, so I don't want to leave you hanging on that.
I gotta learn how to do the acronyms because Hendel's like pretty easy, but Tarnofsky now is like that's the tricky one.
Yep, you gotta rock that out.
Hendel-Tarnofsky, man.
It's a doozy. And then also my name, joshtarnofsky@gmail.com. So you can reach me on either a DM on Facebook or directly to my Gmail account. And I would love to support you any way I can. And just finding that healing space. Like, to me, that's something I want everybody to have.
Yeah, you could just slip in Josh's DM.
Game on.
I feel that. That's amazing, y'all. Thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, I think people are probably going to get a ton of value from this. I know I am. I'm blown away. I can't wait to share some of the things I learned from this podcast. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you.
It's always such a learning
honor.
experience. Whenever I talk to you, I just pick up so much, and you provide so much value to us. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're going to have to do part 2 for sure because we're going to go into purpose for like another hour. So
Yes.
Let's do it. Put on the book.
Purpose part 2 with Steph and Josh, or Stosh. Be on the lookout for that. Well-being Nation, we love you guys, and be on the lookout for Stosh very soon. And peace.
Peace.